everyone. So today is a little bit of a different day for me. I'm actually not going to be working from the studio. We're taking it out on the streets. I'm just joking. No, but I am going outside. So as some of you might know, I am a prolific enjoyer of portraiture. I love drawing faces and portraits and characters and all these kinds of things. And to be honest with you, I am not that well versed with backgrounds and landscape painting just because I've never really felt that attached to drawing landscapes and stuff. But recently I got sent this easel stand. It's like an easel tripod for painting in plein air, which means painting outside in plain air, essentially. And I thought, I don't really have an excuse anymore to not be practicing drawing landscapes. With that said, today I'm taking this bad boy and a bunch of painting supplies, and I'm going to be painting some landscape in person. This is a very new thing for me. I've never really painted in the wilderness. Yeah, doing new things is scary. And I'm actually going with my friend Devon. They're also going to be painting. So it's going to be nice. A nice chill day. It's very nice and sunny. So yeah, I am going to finish packing up and then we're going to head off to a park to do some nice painting.
So first things first, I obviously had to pack all of my art supplies into this little bag, which ended up being 2 bags because I had to take a nice big surface to put my painting on. And once I got to the park, all these little doggies were coming up to me and saying hi, and it was honestly such a mood boost. I was so excited. I gave them all these little cuddles, and then after dog cuddles, I actually set up my painting station. So I set up my little crafty tripod easel, and it was really easy and sturdy, even on uneven ground like the park. And I set up my little easel art supply tray that I bought as well that attaches to any tripod or easel. It's really, really nice. And I brought that with me so that I could put my little gouache palette and my water bucket on there. And this was my view that I picked for the painting. So nice, it's such a beautiful day as well. I picked a really nice one and I was really excited to get painting. I got out my paintbrushes while I let my gouache reactivate after I put some water in them. And finally it was time to start sketching out my landscape. And I knew that I was going to want to do a sketch layer with some pencil because, again, I'm not the most comfortable with drawing landscapes and drawing backgrounds. So I knew that I wanted to have some sort of base drawing to go for. I know some people don't even do this. They go immediately in with paints, but I was not feeling that confident. So once I was happy with my sketch, I started adding in some base swatches. And basically this is just me adding a very watered down version of basically the overlaying color of the painting, which is like a bluish green is mostly what all of the painting's gonna be. But before we carry on with that, let's hear a word from today's sponsors. Listen folks, painting for hours on end is all fun and games until you get home and the wrist pain kicks in. But thankfully, Bob and Brad are the sponsors of today's video. I have struggled with RSI, wrist pain, cysts, and I think a lot of artists out there resonate with the chronic struggle of wrist and hand pain. This is why I'm so excited to have the help of the Bob and Brad hand massager. With this handy portable cordless hand massager, I can now experience innovative and cozy hand relaxation expertly designed by renowned physical therapists Bob and Brad. Bob and Brad are 2 physical therapists with over 60 years of combined experience who years ago set out to provide the internet's best collection of get fit, stay healthy, and pain-free advice. And they were kind enough to send me their H60 hand massager that both me and my partner yet again have been really enjoying. This hand massager delivers a lifelike professional massage with 3 customizable modes: health, soothing, and vitality, with 3 adjustable intensity levels and soothing heat, effectively targeting fingers, palms, and wrists to enhance blood circulation, alleviate pain, and reduce stiffness. It is compact and travel friendly. It comes with its dedicated little storage bag and supports USB-C charging, making it perfect for use at home, in the office, or on the go. Perfect for artists, manual laborers, office workers, typists, or sports enthusiasts seeking lasting hand comfort and wellness. If you'd like to step into your own at-home oasis of relaxation, make sure to check out the link in my description to get your own H60 Bob and Brad hand massager. And you can also get an extra 10% off using the code in my description as well. You're welcome. Thank you so much to Bob and Brad for sponsoring today's video. Current Pypah is about to go enjoy a nice little hand massage, but for now, let's check back in with past Pypah, painting at the park. Thank you, future Pypah. Back here at the park, we have some more color happening on the painting. After I let my sort of base layer dry a little bit, but while it was still damp, I went in and started adding some different colors, so sort of like my bigger points of contrast, so I could start building some shapes onto my painting. And this was really scary, I'm not gonna lie. I was feeling so out of my depth, so like uncomfortable, and there were people passing by behind me, watching me, which obviously didn't make it any better. And I was like, oh my, I was panicking, I was. But I was trying to ignore those feelings of panic and just focusing on, you know, the feeling of being outside, of hearing the ducks and the doggies running around, and the feeling of my paintbrush on the paper. And I was really trying to not let all of those thoughts of self-doubt and those imposter syndrome thoughts get the better of me, because I was really dedicated to actually going through with this painting and making something that I enjoyed, but more so enjoying the actual process of doing this. It took me a while to get into it and to ignore those bad feelings, but after a little bit of this section of the painting, which was adding in my little blocks of color, like all the big bushes right at the back in the background, and then adding different layers of blues into the water and just starting to add a little bit more shape to the painting, I was starting to get into it a little bit because I was starting to see the vision. It wasn't, you know, just a bunch of blobs. Well, it was still a bunch of blobs, but they were intentional blobs, you know? So I brought a really big brush, as you saw, to do pretty much the bigger sections of the painting, and it really came in handy. It helped me fill in some really big areas really quickly. But once I was happy with those big areas, I started going in with one of my smaller flat brushes and starting to add in some smaller details, like some of the foliage in the foreground and some harsher lines in the little landscapey areas in the background. And then I started the painstaking process of trying to paint this body of water. And let me tell you, painting water is not as easy as it looks, or you might think. I thought it was going to be really easy, but then I started getting into it, and the amount of detail that I wanted to include in the water was actually really hard to achieve. I tried a bunch of different techniques. I tried dry brushing, I tried doing little stippling motions with my flat brush, which ended up being the technique I enjoyed the most, like this one that you see right here. Just really touching the tip of my flat brush and making these constant horizontal lines and just creating a bunch of like little stipply looking shapes on the water to basically mimic the light of the sun hitting the surface of the water and the ripples and everything. And this was the technique that I was enjoying the most, so I went with it. And every once in a while I used a dry brush to kind of blend those all a little bit together in the background just to create a little bit more cohesion. But I was really enjoying using my flat brushes for this. It was the most amount of detail and like variety in brush stroke size that I was successfully achieving, so I was going with those for this. Oh, by the way, this is when my friend Devon arrived. They had like bus and transport trouble, so they were a bit late. But they finally got here and we had a little picnic. As you can see, we got all our snacks over there on the bench next to us, and it was such a vibe. They also ended up getting out their paints and their sketchbook and painted it with me as well, so it was really fun. Say hi, Devon.
Hi. Do you want to see my art?
Show us your...
Yeah.
I do. It's really good. It's really good.
I think so too.
But yeah, that's Devon. Everyone say hi to Devon. You're gonna see me yap for the rest of the video in the background with Devon, because that's what we do best. The day just kind of went on and I kept just adding little bits of detail and then letting paint dry and having a little snack and a sip of my iced coffee and just really enjoying the sun. It was such a really nice day. Besides the painting aspect of this video, I really hope you're enjoying the serene vibes of the park and hoping that you feel like you're there with us too, having a hangout. Yeah, I just kept going in with smaller and smaller brushes, especially on the water. I wanted to get the lake painted and detailed as much as possible to begin with, because I knew that once that was successfully painted, I would have all the confidence I needed to go into the big bushy background areas. I knew that getting the hard part out of the way first would really get me like pumped to do the rest of the painting. So that's why I was tackling the water first, in case you were wondering. It's also the biggest area of this painting, so I thought, you know, get the water out of the way, get most of the painting basically rendered so I can get a feel for how I want to render the rest of the painting. Because, you know, the problem with not having much practice with a certain type of subject like background and landscapes means that you don't really have much of a sense of personal style of rendering those things. So it can become quite paralyzing when you get to rendering something like it, because you don't actually know how you want it to look and what you want to do in order to achieve it how you want it in your head. So this is why it took me so long to get the water down, but I was really happy with it. Did you see how I did these additions of light and shadows using the flat brush to create the shadows of trees at the back of the painting and then basically reflecting those onto the water? I was really, really happy with the effect that I managed to achieve with that. And all of this was just using two flat brushes. Like, it's literally all that I needed. I think I ended up using 3 or 4 different paintbrushes for the whole painting. I just kept using the same one because I was really enjoying using it. So once I was happy with the way that the lake came out, oh my god, look at those little duckies in the background. It was such a nice day. Anyways, I started going into the background itself and started trying to render those areas. And there was a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, the further back you go and the further, you know, into the background, there's more stuff going on that catches the eye. But obviously, I don't want it to be as detailed or rendered because I want to create a little bit of a blur in the background to make it look like it is further away. So I want stuff to be closer in the foreground, to be more detailed and sharper, I guess, and the stuff right at the back to look a little bit blurrier on purpose. And I think that that's a really nice, easy way to create depth in art. So, but again, take it with a grain of salt because, as you know, I'm not typically well versed in landscape art, but I'm trying my best and I'm trying to put to use any and all knowledge that I have regarding paintings. So whilst that layer at the background was drying, I decided to go in and add some cute little geese and, well, some Canada geese and some ducks onto my lake. And this was really, really cute because actually 2 ducks stood perfectly still for a while, enough for me to capture them just floating along on the lake, and it was really nice. I got to have a perfect view of them and get their little spots and feathers in the right color. And I also did some details like their reflections onto the water, as well as a little bit of a highlight detailing like the trail that they had left of the ripples in the water. And I think it ended up looking so, so cute. I was really, really proud of my little geese. They actually added a lot of necessary detail to the water that I think was missing. And then there was also a little bit of a wooden pier over to the left that I wanted to capture as well. It was a little bit out of the way, but I thought it'd be a really cute little addition over there. So I added the flats for that as well, and I let it dry so that I could add more details to it later. It didn't end up coming out very nice in the end, but I was happy that I added something in that little corner. And while all of that stuff was drying, I was just adding some more vegetation and some more leaves and stuff to the foreground that are all those leaves across the border of the lake. And I started adding some more details to the trees and the bushes in the background. And here is when I started using more of a dry brush technique, just trying to utilize the texture of the bristles on my flat brushes to my advantage. As you can see here, just kind of using a really light hand and just really using the tips of the brush to create sort of leaf-like details and just creating these textures. This was, again, all very experimental. I was going back and forth, just trying to test out different techniques and see which ones I liked the most. And it ended up using a lot of different ones, but this stippling motion came out the best, I think, for the style and the look that I was wanting to get from bushes and trees from the back. I ended up going lighter and lighter in color and using the stippling motion to just highlight the leaves and the bits of the bushes that were being touched by the light, and this created a lot of depth and dimension in those leaves at the back. So yeah, this little stippling motion was mwah, chef's kiss. It really created some very pretty shapes for the leaves. and the gouache was just behaving beautifully with this technique as well, so it was all just really working out. And it did take a lot of different layers to achieve the different contrast and the dimension that I wanted and all the different colors, but I was really happy with how it was turning out. Ended up adding some more trees to the background, more little bits of vegetation and stuff to the painting, and that was kind of it. Then I just started adding final touches and messing with the painting a little bit too much, you know, but just adding some really big pops of highlight with my white gouache and just trying to add the most amounts of contrast in my painting. And then of course I couldn't stop myself. Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to add some little sparkles to the painting. It just wouldn't feel me without adding some sparkles, so that's what I did. And that was pretty much it. I just kind of added some little final details here and my signature to the painting. And then it was time to actually peel off the tape, which I'm so excited. I had some masking tape to add a nice little border to my painting before I even left the house. And it was finally time to see the painting with its nice, crisp, clean borders. But I'm really happy with how the painting came out. It came out a lot greener, I think, generally than the actual source material. I wish I'd gone a bit more with a blue tone in the water, but I don't know. I really like the green color palette. I think it just really made it look so abundant with nature and stuff. I think it ended up looking really nice. So this is my final painting and I'm really, really happy with how it came out. So there it is. My painting, I did that today. I'm really proud of myself for pushing myself out of my comfort zone and doing this today. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video and my process. Do make sure to check out all the materials that I used in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!